To Death with Food, Part 3. The purpose of this video is to share educational and practical information to those desiring to live life in true health. My intent is not to criticize or demean any specific persons, groups, or organizations that may be relative to the material presented. Biblical references may be used during the video for the purpose of drawing parallels between the people of old versus people of our modern times with respects to health and food. Deception. To help you further understand one of the major effects of food on the human body, I am going to use an illustration. So let's imagine a wagon, a little red kid's toy wagon. You know, the kind with the extended arm in the front used for pulling. Have you ever heard the saying, it's easier to pull an empty wagon? It's true, literally. The less you have in the wagon, the easier it is to pull it. As you begin to put different items of varying size and weight into the wagon, the more difficult it becomes to pull. As the weight of the items placed into the wagon increases, you can then begin to observe that the tires on the wagon are starting to flatten. Despite how useful of a tool the wagon is with respects to its designs, when used beyond its engineered capacity and ability, it will not function properly. This reasoning equally applies in the case of the human body. As wonderful of a design that it is, with multiple systems working harmoniously together to maintain lifelong functionality and support, if overloaded with, let's say, too much food, then what would be the result? The body now must use most of its resources in order to get rid of the food. This renders the rest of the body momentarily helpless and having to internally fend for itself without full support of the body's multifaceted systems. In other words, your strength and energy are now mostly being diverted in response to reactionary functions by your digestive system to either make use of or to get rid of what you have consumed. How much and how often you eat determines how hard your body has to work during this process. This is in turn why we become so lethargic after eating a large meal. Now, assuredly, this effect of food on the body is a commonly well-known fact by the general public. Did anyone have to actually convince you of this occurrence in order for you to take notice of what was happening inside of your body? Probably not. Simply by your own observations, you were able to hypothesize your own deductions. So I ask, why then do we continue to allow the food industry to blindly dictate to us the very definition of what food is? And you would say, what's so bad about that? Aren't they the ones who make the food? And those are my sentiments exactly. If the very people that define food are the same people who make the food, should we not see the huge conflict of interests, not to mention question what possible impact this have or may have on our health and our bodies? By now you're probably saying, so what's your point? My point is this, boiling it down. When we allow ourselves to be deceived into believing that something is the complete opposite of what we are told that it is, even when what we see and observe tells us differently, how much more likely are we to fall prey to other devices that may have far more of a detrimental impact on our health and body than just deprivation of energy and maybe weight gain? Remember, when you discover one lie, all truths become questionable. A continually perpetuated lie is that food is energy for the body, and without it, we would die. This is an absolute and intentional, repeated, surreptitious lie. Those two highly propagandized statements are largely responsible for our skewed perception and overindulgence of food and sits at the base of up to 50% of the cause of our health issues. Whether we admittedly notice it or not, our body repeatedly experiences just the opposite effects. If we eat too much, we feel tired. The less we eat, the more lively we feel, not like we're dying. This ain't rocket science, folks. Start asking yourself more questions about the foods that you eat, like what is the food really made of? And why are there so many life-threatening chemicals in them? And then you'll really begin to see how deep the rabbit hole gets, in addition to seeing the even bigger picture, like how the so-called food that you eat can lead you down the path of needless surgeries and prescription drugs. Don't be afraid of the scary answers you may get when you ask questions about the food you're eating. Do your own research. Look up ingredients and find out what you're really eating. It will change the way you see food.